Now, you did several interviews during the 2016 election process.
Yeah.
Looking at the situation now with President Trump and his job performance, are you satisfied by what you've seen so far from the president?
Well, 90% yes. You know, I even was advising him, urging him, because we've been friendly over the years, and when he was campaigning, and he knew I was supportive of him, though I was kind of keeping my powder dry, not doing anything publicly until it might really pay off, which it did. In the last week before the election, I was asked to do robocalls. Now, Politico here in Washington had several years ago written a piece about Pat Boone's robocalls, a potent political weapon, to Christians and seniors. And I'd been paid to do millions. I say paid, wasn't paid anything, but somebody had to put up the money to cover it, and I did, with no charge from me, millions of robocalls for conservative candidates in 2010, 2012. Now it's 2016, and I held back until the last week before the election, and we were able to raise the funding necessary to do 3 million robocalls, calling seniors and Christians, many of whom databases showed were not going to vote. And I was saying it is your Christian and civic duty to vote, because if you don't vote for the Republican Party, then you are casting your vote for the Democrat platform. You need to look not at the people, not the candidates. You may not like either one, but look at the platforms. And if you want what the Republican platform presents, that's what they're going to try to do. Or you like the Democratic platform, that's what that candidate is going to impose. Then you have to vote according to your conscience and hopefully to your intelligence. And we did robocalls 3 million in Ohio, Pennsylvania, Wisconsin, North Carolina, and Michigan. 5 battleground states in the last week before the election. Now, they were close elections. I'd love to think that maybe those calls that I made, 3 million of them, to people who in many cases were not planning to vote, but they did perhaps get off the couch and go vote, that maybe that made a difference. So now I was urging then candidate Trump, a friend, to just tone down his name calling and rhetoric, because it seems so unpresidential. I said, get a tape out of Ronald Reagan's debates, see how he differed categorically with his opponent, but with humor and respect, and it made people like him and not reject what he was saying because of the manner in which he was saying it. And I said, I'll bet your wife is saying something. And he laughed, agreeing, said, yeah, his wife was wanting him to tone down his acerbic rhetoric. But, of course, he did it his way, and he still is. However, the thing I love is that, like Reagan, he has set out to do everything he said he would do, and we elected him to do. That's so different and refreshing. And, of course, it steps on a lot of vipers' nests. It raises hackles, and people are just adamant. There's almost a psychosis. We've got to get this man out of office. And even we conservatives who weren't happy about Obama's election twice were never as demeaning and ridiculing. All the comedians, I mean, they love to just make Trump look like an absolute fool. And it's actually making a lot of us even more angry and more supportive.
What's the 10% that you think he needs to improve on?
Well, I think just being more presidential. And see, he's having to learn the job. For anybody, it's a learn-as-you-go job. Nobody comes into the office of president without having to learn as he goes. And I remember the panic, and I've told him this, when I was a little kid and FDR died. And a little haberdasher from Kansas City, Harry Truman, was vice president, but nobody expected him ever to be president. Suddenly he was. And my parents said, we're doomed. What does this guy know about how to be a president? Well, it turned out that Harry Truman learned as he went and was a man with some backbone and a man with principle. And I think he was a Democrat, but he was a solid president. He was not unaccustomed to profanity in his private life, and once in a while it erupted, but he made difficult decisions, dropping the first atom bomb that stopped the Second World War, saved a lot of lives, Japanese and American. He fired MacArthur for insubordination. And then he considered his greatest achievement, he put America on the side of Israel in 1948, when all of his advisors were saying, hey, we don't need an Israel. We want the friendship of those Arabs and those oil nations. But Harry Jacobson, I think his name was, Truman's former haberdashery partner, flew into Washington, had a closed door meeting in the Oval Office for about an hour, and reminded him of what God says in the Bible about Israel and the Jews. And when the door opened, Truman placed America firmly on the side of Israel. Now, these were difficult decisions, and he was, yes, a novice at the presidency, and as Trump is now. But this is a job you learn as you go, and you will make mistakes and flubs, but if you stick to your principles, you can win.
He's gotten some criticism for the tweeting.
Oh, yeah.
Do you think it's a good idea? Should he keep doing that?
I don't, personally. I see why he likes to do it, because it's an immediate connection to a lot of the electorate. But I think he could have that. If he's going to do tweeting, I would like to have an accomplished comedy writer, political writer, fashion them for him, so that he says things with wit and not just, like in your face or just flat assertions. Because, as I say, and he laughed when I said, I bet your wife is telling you this, it doesn't seem presidential. Not that he cares that much, but it would build a lot of confidence in a lot of people if he would just restrain the rhetoric. Go ahead and do the job, do everything he came to do, be almost like a Calvin Coolidge maybe, just quietly set about to do what you came to do and not worry about what people say about it.
Are you still in touch with him?
Not lately, no. I can go through a couple of intermediaries and get stuff to him, comments and suggestions. And I guess there's no point in my going into those now, but I do have suggestions that he could, I think, benefit from, as in John F. Kennedy's case, when he took on the space race as his main theme, and it was a tremendous benefit to him in his presidency, his short presidency. And I think this whole energy thing and global warming and all this is a hot issue. That's not a pun. We're not as hot as they keep saying. Like, if in 20 years we do everything that the climate change people worry about and want us to do, we might affect the global temperature by 1/200% or something. We wouldn't even notice it. It's an overblown issue, but energy is a huge issue, and I've been for several years now working with scientists who are mentoring me in the subject of nuclear fusion. Now, I'm not, as I say, a scientist, but I now have come to understand that nuclear fusion, as opposed to fission, is a God thing. Fission destroys and explodes atoms, and it becomes very dangerous. It can be very detrimental. It can create great energy. Fusion, the sun is a nuclear fusion reactor. It's a God thing, and if we can emulate the sun in combining atoms, helium and other items, we can create more energy than the world could ever use, more freely available, energize everything and not worry about fossil fuel ever again or any effect on the climate in the world. So there are things that can be done, and I think it would benefit Trump if he knew about these things, and of course, it's just something he doesn't know yet. And why would I know? Except I've been mentored by some real scientists.
Yeah, he's been getting a lot of backlash for pulling the U.S. out of the Paris Accord. Yeah,
and I was yelling at the TV saying, tell them you believe in climate change. The climate is constantly changing up and down like the temperature in this room, for that matter, it's constantly changing up and down. It always has. It always will. So yeah, you believe in climate change, but you don't believe in all these band-aids that people, these $1 trillion band-aids, they want to put on something that cannot be solved by those band-aids. That we've got to have what energy we have currently and utilize it, but meanwhile develop inexhaustible energy for the future, and that's nuclear fusion.